Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm excited about today's video actually. I wanted to talk about the books that I read this month, but I wanted to do it a little bit differently. I wanted to rank them in a tier list. That's how the internet ranks things. I've enjoyed watching people rank things before in tier lists before, so I wanted to do that. It's the end of the month. It's the 31st, so I just thought, why don't I just go through all the books that I read this month and throw them into a tier list? So I made my own tier list. This is my own ideas. If you don't know, a tier list goes from F, worst, bad, bottom of the barrel, to S, top, best, whatever, and you can rank anything, but I wanted to make my categories a little bit differently. So hopefully you can see everything on the screen here. This is the bottom category here, and it's the just no category. It's the F category. Anything that goes in here is a book that is like dead on arrival for me. Of course, you know, anything can change, anything can happen, but if a book is just a hopeless endeavor for me, I see no light at the end of the tunnel, I see no way of ever enjoying it or liking it, I'm going to put it in that bottom F tier, the just no category. Above that is the not right now, I guess, category, or the D tier. This is for books that I didn't finish maybe, or they just didn't work for me for whatever reason, but I'm still holding out hope that maybe I just didn't get it, maybe I'm just not reading it in the right headspace, maybe there was something that I should know about the book that I didn't know about the book, but it objectively didn't work for me. I didn't have a good time reading it, but that doesn't mean that I've given up on it and I'm saying that the book is trash and that I will never, ever read it again or anything like that. Above that is the could have lived without it tier, or the C tier. This is for books that were okay, but also I could have gone my entire life without having read it, and I would have died just as happy without reading that book. Obviously, there are times when you read a book, maybe on a whim or whatever, and you think to yourself, thank God I read that. Thank God I ended up, you know, deciding to read that, because if I hadn't, oh my gosh, I can't imagine living without that experience. This is not for those books. This is for books that you go, okay. But, you know, at the same time, it's not like a formative reading experience or anything like that. Above that is the glad I read it. So these are books that I'm glad that I read, but maybe I'm not excited to reread, or maybe it was like a good for a one-time thing, but I did have a positive experience with it. I'm glad that I had that experience with it, and you know, maybe I'll hold on to the physical copy for a reread at some point. But generally, if it's a positive experience with a book, I'll put it in the glad I read it category. And then above that is the I want to read it again category, the A tier. So if I finish a book and I'm like, wow, that was incredible, that was amazing, I can't wait to read that again, then it'll go in the A tier. And then above that is the S tier, and that is the grow old together category. So if I read a book and I realize right away as I'm reading it that this is a book that I will never really want to be parted from that much, that I will always want to, you know, have this book in my life to some extent, that I will read it and reread it and reread it and reread it until I'm in the ground, then it'll go in that category. Now, I'm planning on doing something like this, hopefully, for the rest of the year. So I'll have multiple opportunities to make tier lists of the books that I read in a month. So I'm going to be pretty conservative with the books that end up in that top tier. I don't want to just flood it by the end. Then by the end of the year, I've got, you know, 17 books that are like in the S tier. I feel like it should definitely be reserved for books that are very, very special, make for a very, very special reading experience. I also think, just thinking about the books that I've read this month, there are books on here that I absolutely loved, and they might end up eventually being an S-tier book. But for right now, I don't think... and in fact, I know none of the books that I have in front of me are going to go in that top tier, but that certainly doesn't mean that there weren't any books this month that I didn't like reading. There was... You'll see. I mean, there are plenty of books that I really, really enjoyed. So, let's get started. And I'm going to go in order of the books that I read as the month went on. So the first one is John Reed's 10 Days That Shook the World. John Reed was an American journalist. He found himself in Russia at the time of the October Revolution, and he wrote about the sights and sounds and experiences of being in Russia during that an incredibly tumultuous and dangerous time. And it was incredible. I loved it, and in fact, I've enthused about it so many times on this channel that I'm pretty sure I've already inspired 2 people to read it, which I really appreciate it, and I think that's great, but I'm not going to talk your ear off about it because I have been ranting and raving about how much I like it for the entirety of this month. So, but that is an easy A tier for me. I want to read it again. I would read it again right now if I could. So that is an easy A tier pick for me. The next book I read was History of the Russian Revolution by Leon Trotsky. This was my mammoth for this month. Came in at about 900 pages. It's 3 volumes. It's difficult. It's complicated. Trotsky is writing in a very unique way that is particular to him and his ideology. But overall, I'm very happy to put this in the glad I read it category. I'm very glad that I read it. I'm glad that I had the experience with it, but I don't want to read it again. Not right now. Maybe at some point I'll pick out bits and pieces of it. I wonder if I ever will read it from cover to cover again. I probably will, but it won't be for a long time, I think. But I'm happy that I read it. Absolutely, I'm happy that I read it, and I had a good experience with it overall. So I'm going to put that there. And I mentioned in my video about it, but these 2 books, reading one back to back with each other, was an amazing reading experience. So if you're thinking, if either of those 2 sound interesting to you, I would recommend as a fun reading experience or exercise to read both, because I personally had a lot of fun doing that, and I think you would too. After that is Jim Thompson, The Getaway. This is a piece of crime fiction, noir type novel. I explained in my video about this that I don't happen to really like crime fiction that much. I've read a couple of pieces of crime fiction before. None of them ever did anything for me, and this was my favorite. So I am going to be on the lookout for Jim Thompson in the future. However, I'm not planning on rereading this novel anytime soon, so I'm going to put it in the glad I read it category. I'm glad I read it because I'm glad I had the experience of reading a Jim Thompson novel. I'm glad I had the experience of reading a piece of crime fiction that I enjoyed. But I'm not about to reread it anytime soon. So after that came Agatha Christie's Murder on the Orient Express. I read this for March Mystery Madness, where you are encouraged to read a murder mystery. I have not read many murder mysteries at all, so I started at a very basic place, and unfortunately, very unfortunately, I'm going to have to put this in the could have lived without it category. I liked it, I didn't love it, and in fact, I was a little bit disappointed by it because I wanted to like it more than I did. I'm sure that Agatha Christie is an incredible writer, and I'm sure that she does an amazing job, and I'm going to read more of her books, and I did enjoy this. Overall, I did. I mean, I liked the ending. I thought it wrapped up very nicely. I thought it was a satisfying conclusion to the story, but at the end of the day, I don't have any incentive to reread it. I don't want to reread it, and frankly, I'm already forgetting so much about it. So I'm gonna have to put it in the could have lived without it category, but not because I want to, but it's just because I'm being honest. But I will keep an eye out for Agatha Christie going forward. If you have any recommendations for murder mysteries, feel free to put them in the comments. I got 2 on the last video that I talked about murder mysteries on, and those will both be going on next month's TBR. I'll talk about that in a future video, but I'm very grateful to anybody who gives me reading recommendations in the comments of my videos. Just generally, I think that's awesome. So if you have any murder mystery recommendations or any further Agatha Christie that you think I should read, definitely let me know. I'm certainly not writing her as an author off, or the genre off at all. Okay, next after that was Pale Horse, Pale Rider by Catherine Ann Porter. This is going to go in the glad I read it category. I am glad that I read it. This is 3 of her short novels. Apparently she hated the word novella, so I call them short novels for her sake. The last one, The Pale Horse, Pale Rider, the title short novel, it was my favorite. I thought it was the most visceral of the books in this, the short novels in here, but they were all good, and I'm glad that I read them. I don't think I'll be returning to it anytime soon, but it's sort of Southern Gothic, and they were all interesting, and they certainly don't overstay their welcome. You can blow through this in an afternoon. So this got a recommend from me, and I'm glad that I read it. After that is Lawrence Stern's The Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy, Gentleman. I have to say that this is going to go in the not right now, I guess, category. I was having fun with it. I was enjoying my reading experience with it. The problem with it was that at a certain point, I just got burnt out. This book is about 600 pages. It's a pretty hefty book, and considering the way that it's written, considering what it does as a novel, I just really was not in the mood to read 600 pages of what I had been reading in the first 200 or so before I stopped. I was enjoying it, but it just started to run a little bit thin for me, and I started to notice that I was really procrastinating on reading it. So when I noticed that, I really start to examine whether or not that book is worth reading, and I decided that I was more excited to read other things. So I put the stop to it, but I'm certainly not writing it off. And if you have any recommendations for reading this book, if you are screaming at your monitor right now, calling me an idiot for not understanding why this book is so great, sound off in the comments. Let me know. I'm happy to revise that opinion, because I want to enjoy this. There's no reason not to, but I was just not enjoying it as I was reading it. So that's going to have to go in the D tier, in all honesty. After that is The Flamingo's Smile by Stephen Jay Gould. This is a collection of his essays. It came out in 1985, and it was a treasure for me. This is an easy one to read it again. I would definitely read it again. This is an incredible book. Stephen Jay Gould is writing here on natural history. He was an evolutionary biologist, a paleontologist, just a man of letters overall. He knew so much, and wrote so passionately about all of the things that he was interested in, all of the things that he knew so extensively about, and that made for just an incredible reading experience overall. And I'm very happy that I read this, and I would recommend it basically to anyone, even if you're not interested in natural history, just because of how much of a great writer he is, and just because of how many different topics he touches on, and how interesting, like natively interesting these concepts are, even for somebody. And I'm not an expert in natural history at all myself, and I got a ton of great reading time with this. So this got a recommend from me, and it's definitely going to go in the I want to read it again category for sure. Okay, the next after that was The Violent Bear It Away by Flannery O'Connor. I read this for Flannery O'Connor's 100th birthday. I initially read this for the first time when I was about a freshman in college. I remember having a great time with it then. I had a great time revisiting it now. I'm going to put it in the glad I read it category. I don't think I'll be reading it again anytime soon, but I definitely had fun reading it. And if you have not treated yourself to Flannery O'Connor, I would definitely recommend you do so. Start with her short story, Good Man is Hard to Find. That's usually the place that people get sucked into Flannery O'Connor. That's the way I got sucked into Flannery O'Connor. And then you might end up reading Wise Blood in this, and they're both really great novels. Very weird, very different, but just extremely engaging and interesting. So that's going to definitely go in the glad I read it category. Okay, last book, The Age of Reason Begins by Will and Ariel Durant. This is the 7th volume in the Story of Civilization series. It's the volume after the Reformation volume, which I just read. And this is going to definitely go in the glad I read it category. I feel like most of the volumes in this series are going to follow the same kind of arc. I think there will be times when I'm more interested in the time period that they're discussing than other volumes. However, I think all of them will maintain the amazing writing that I know this series to be capable of, and I think all of them will be worth reading. So I'm pretty sure all of them are going to go in the Glad I Read It category, and especially once I get to the end of it at the end of the year, I'm very excited for that. That will feel great. All of these volumes so far have been volumes that I've procrastinated on reading because they feel like a big investment of time and energy, but then when I actually get started, I kind of fall into what I'm reading, and I really sort of just like enjoy picking it up and reading it. And I've mentioned it before, but I absolutely love these volumes, like the physical volume itself. Reading from them is just a treat, actually. So I'm having a lot of fun reading them. I don't think I'll ever reread every single volume again, but you know, there are just moments in these books where you'll get a description of somebody. Like in this volume, you get an amazing a depiction of like King Philip II, which I loved. So there's just so many great reasons to read these volumes, and I can't wait to keep going. So that's going to definitely go in the Glad I Read It category. And that's it, guys. So I hope that was helpful. I had a fun doing that. As expected, there is no book yet that is going in the Grow Old Together category, but there also isn't anything in the F tier, that just no category. I wonder what will happen, what it'll take to get a book in the just no category. I don't know if I there's a couple of books that I've read. Actually, yeah, no, it can happen. I'm thinking of a couple of books this year that I've read before I started my BookTube channel that would definitely fall into that. So anyway, I'm excited to do this again going forward, and I think that's it for me today. Thank you, BookTube.